Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers, and this next tier.
And Blue Dragon 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we find ourselves on the cusp of Disney's big venture into the world of streaming, even counting a war in the process, we thought it'd be nice to stay up to date on the ever-growing catalog and rule on what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I have
You
one
should
last
be.
That accent
I have one last.
me.
Unbelievable.
I have one last opportunity to rip on Carly, and I'm going to take it. All right.
But you
Carly
had to
sucks.
open it with that.
I don't blame you in the slightest. That was hilarious.
Thank you, Gulliver. Thank you. Just to reemphasize Carly's the thesis statement of Carly's character on the podcast. I care about people so much that I'm going to blow up a building full of people in it. All right, guys. So we're not here to just hate on Carly. Honestly, to me, it's the most interesting thing to talk about with the show. Just because for me, as a thesis statement, I honestly really do think the rest of the show is awesome. By all accounts, I feel like outside of the Flag Smasher stuff, I really do think every other element of the show, for the most part, barring maybe a couple pacing issues that we might disagree with, I really think it all fires on all cylinders. The lethal weapon type dynamic with Sam and Bucky. I really like the way that they used the Dora Milaje in the plot, and it both kind of furthered the Wakanda presence in the MCU, as well as gave Bucky some more meat to chew on with his story. And of course, Zemo was great. I feel like the Isaiah Bradley stuff is honestly some of the most touching and moving scenes in the entirety of the MCU. I feel like the writers just absolutely stuck to landing on that character. I feel like that character is easily the biggest accomplishment of this season. Zemo was fun. We got the Zemo memes. I like that. Not only did we get the we got the obvious dancing Zemo meme, but we also got Zemo's Alfred. So that was fun. And of course, Sam becoming Captain America, very, very cathartic. But yeah, unfortunately, I just wish that the Flag Smashers were stronger, and the Flag Smashers really do just hold this season back. I got to tell you guys, I watched the season again, so I've seen it 3 times now. I've seen it once just watching episode by episode, week by week, and then twice all the way through. And I got to tell you, I really if the Flag Smashers were just, if they were either handled better, or if John Walker was just the main antagonist and they wrote around the Flag Smashers and just wrote them out, I just think this show would be a masterpiece. And as it stands now, it's got some really, really awesome elements in it, with one element that really drags it down. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, I'm terribly sorry. I'm burying the lead. Oh my god!
And forgetting to introduce the third guy on the panel.
That's what I'm saying. We have a special guest here tonight. You've already heard him. I'm terribly sorry, Gulliver. I'm just my Carly rage has blinded me.
Yeah.
It's Jacob Gulliver of Hot Chocolate Media.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be back.
All right, I'm honestly genuinely sorry, Gulliver.
What happens when you double down the whole Memphis Nest thing? Look, you hurt the little people. Look what you do.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right, so Gulliver, I will actually go ahead and throw it to you now, so you don't have to wait through Dragon praising the show. What do you think of the show?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I think a lot of what you said definitely rang true for me as well. I think I have a little bit of a different take on the whole Flag Smasher thing, and I think it's just a matter of context and that whole characterization being complicated, because they're clearly trying to sell Carly as this character who's really conflicted about what she's doing. She's doing what she's doing for the right reasons. She just doesn't seem to have the best grasp on how best to do that without causing a ton of damage in the process. And there are times when it's handled more smoothly than others, for sure. I think my take is that I think this show is trying to sell the audience on the very real world idea that there's always going to be somebody who the power structures that be let down, and those people are always going to be mad, and they're always going to try and fight for what they believe in, and they're always going to cause a lot of problems in the process. But the way that they are labeled, the way that they are treated by society when they ask for something that was promised and then backed away from, is a huge problem. And we see that, despite the best efforts of Sam and Bucky to try and like correct, this toxic worldview of Carly, and also try and correct the toxic worldview of John Walker, neither of them really back down from their worldviews, but Carly and her friends get blown up or killed because of it, and John Walker gets a pat on the back and a special secret government job. I think what they're trying to prove here is that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and the way that we treat somebody by othering them, the way that we treat somebody, who even somebody who has done something, heroic or difficult in the name of the country in which they hold dearest, the way that we treat those folks has a huge impact that a lot of people don't think about. So I think what you're saying makes sense, and I see that perspective, but I also think that there's some deeper, subtler things that are being poked at underneath the surface.
All right.
Isaiah is a huge part of that for me, as well. But yeah, that's kind of my take.
Okay, fair enough. And honestly,
this is why we have Gulliver on the podcast, folks.
No, honestly, Gulliver, that was
that's
that
a
was
thesis.
really, like...
Take that, you little infant's nest impression. This is how you do it. This guy.
I mean, I'm also very biased about a bunch of stuff.
And I gotta tell you, Gulliver,
so many times you invite me
like...
on, and I'm just like, no, I like this thing. So it's
that was the best defense of the Flag Smashers I've heard on the entire internet, and I'm not even being facetious about it.
Okay. No,
I really like that take. And basically, and I've said all along, like at least 50% of my problem with Carly is just that, and this is probably a subjective thing, but frankly, I just don't like the actress. Like I think her performance is kind of wooden.
Aaron Kellyman just sheds a single tear.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Like I think just at least 50% of it is the performance for me, and I feel like that has like nothing to do with the message and the writing. And I feel like the message is fine. I just it's the tone is a little mixed, but I get what you're saying though, and that's a very good defense of it.
I think the actor is extremely good at like the Disney eyes, for lack of a better term, and I think that there are times when they kind of they chose some of those takes. Maybe relied on that, style of performance a little too hard.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger piece than just one performance for me.
All right.
And Aaron Kellyman is a strong actor, in other stuff. I think that she's being tugged in one too many directions in this.
Have you seen her in other stuff besides this in Solo, out of curiosity?
Just this in Solo, but I liked her performance in Solo.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
All right, Dragon.
All right, so my thesis. So, as I've said before, this is the show that clinched it for me with signing up for Disney Plus in the first place, and just historically, the MCU has made me very huge Cap fan. Winter Soldier being my favorite MCU film, period. Suffice to say, I was very invested in this show from the outset. Big shocker, I know. I was very invested in the show, and of course, all the delays and the earthquakes, and of course, pandemics, and And then like, yeah, we're gonna swap WandaVision. But I mean, WandaVision's cool, but I mean, come on. So, end of the day, this show was a dream come true of how to follow up Cap's story at the end of Endgame with Steve passing the mantle down to Sam, and I think this led to a great story tackling the themes of legacy and progress and stuff like that. I mean, the show gave me things I never in a million years would have expected, but I was so happy that we got like, oh my god, we're adapting Truth, red, white, and black. It's amazing. It makes so much sense. Yes, we did that. And that said, I will admit, all the great stuff in this show, and fully admit now we have all the pieces and we've gotten to the end of it. We stumble a little in the finale with the payoffs outside of our namesake characters. It's true. We do all the stuff we built up outside of our main, the main crux of our story. It's like, yeah, it was kind of afraid we were kind of leaning that direction. I was hoping it was going to not end up that way.
At the very least, the Flag Smashers go out in like a gloriously memey way, right?
Anyway,
yeah.
So, but I want to make this clear, though. I mean, even though it stumbles, I think in the finale, I was sucked in every minute of it.
Oh yeah,
just from the show from start to finish. I mean, it's like kind of like when I tune the Better Call, so like I'm razor focused and I'm along for the ride. I'm just like, oh my god, I'm at the edge of my seat, just like yes. And the show moved me, man, which is what I was hoping for. Like Winter Soldier moved me, and again, not exactly the same thing, but it was like in that vein that I was really hoping for. And I think ultimately it did what I was really hoping it was going to do, which is, it did right by Falcon's transition into Cap in a very compelling way, which is what I hoped for, because that's kind of what that story in the comics was. I mean, I remember when I think of the Falcon Cap of it all, I always love that the first kind of issues in that in the Sam Wilson Captain America run, where it's like, he's Cap, but no one's really happy about and thrilled about it, and he's just kind of dealing with that. And the show circumvented that story in some interesting ways. And like, it's like, yeah, would he instantly jump to that? And it kind of raised questions I never thought of. And I was so pleased with the show for challenging just like, the expectation going into it. It's like, well, how fast is it gonna don the suit? But it makes you wait for it and it earns it, and it's delightful. It's a great ride.
They even have a what's in the box cliffhanger to make you wait even more for it.
That it does, but I'm so thrilled and going along with the ride. It's like, yes, they're making me want it so much, and when it happens, it's amazing. Yes.
All right. Love your enthusiasm, Truck. I want to address one more thing that we kind of talked about in the episode 6 recap that we did last week. And Gulliver, I'd be interested to get your take on it.
Yeah.
I really do think that this show would have benefited, as far as pacing goes, from just an all episodes dropped at once kind of deal.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I'm not a fan of the once a week release schedule. It's I've been spoiled by Netflix for the past 10 years. So the fact that other streaming services are now doing the Disney Plus thing, I'm just
Invincible.
like, how dare you? How dare you do this? You know what the industry standard is now.
It's like whenever shows like this do this, like with Invincible, for example, I'm watching through Invincible right now. Like I'm on episode 6. Like I specifically chose to wait until all the episodes are out.
Yeah, I'm up to episode 4, but I'm not there yet.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it?
I've seen the ending, guys. I've seen the ending.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyways. I feel like I've gotten past a big moment that Gulliver hasn't seen yet, and then Dragon.
Well, I've also read the comic.
Oh, okay.
In that regard, Gulliver kind of has it on both of us. In that regard,
yeah, that's true. But oh my god, in Dragon, that Daft Punk villain is just to die for.
I told you, right?
Yeah. Anyways, this is not a podcast about Invincible. I'm terribly sorry. Okay, but I do think that with this specifically being a 6-hour movie, and that's basically entirely what they sold this on, like from the jump. So I really think I personally would have liked it better, especially as we kind of like break down episode 1. Like I think at the very least episode 1 and episode 2 should have been released together.
They should have given us a 6-hour movie had they promised it, which they did, but like they in fine print, it's a 6-hour movie in 6 weeks.
That being said, I really do feel like WandaVision worked as far as a weekly series was concerned, just because that really just lit up the kind of like the water cooler talk, for lack of a better word, more than any other show I've seen in quite a while.
The mystery was really strong with it, but also with that one, like the fact that the style was changing every week, where it like kept changing the shows that it was mimicking, kind of
That was event television kind of brought back
benefit to that. Yeah,
Sure. So with Loki, I definitely think Loki has the potential to be a really good week to week thing as well, because that is obviously going to be playing around with, like different dimensions and realities and stuff like that. So God knows what we're getting from week to week.
I have a good feeling about Loki with week to week. I think they're going to crack the code on Loki.
I'm just excited for Owen Wilson, man.
I know, Mobius. It's going to be cool.
Owen Wilson is like the guy I'm hedging all my bets on for Loki, man.
Wilson really with the mustache.
I'm so for him. Anyways, let's get right into it. Episode 1, New World Order. I got to admit, this episode, it's very solid setup, character-wise. It's a little boring. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Boring.
It's got some great action with the opening fight scene. It's got some good character stuff with, with Sam's decision to give up the shield and the museum and everything. I am going to throw out there, I think, the element of the show that I was not really on board for, that I know that Dragon really loves. I'm pretty sure Jacob is probably going to like it too. The boat.
Yeah, I like the boat.
I understand what they're trying to do with it. I understand. It's like they're trying to, they're trying to like bring Sam down to like, oh, even superheroes have problems. Like, I have a couple issues with this. I mean, one, like, I'm sorry, this is a total MCU plot hole, and I'm a nerd for bringing this up, but I'm just gotta say it, all right? Pepper Potts is just a phone call away. Like, I'm sure she'd help you out, Sam.
But they're not really, like, friends.
No, I know, but it's like they all say...
Yeah,
Tiki,
like Falcon
if Sam and Bucky aren't
friends, because they're on the opposite sides on Civil War. And that was kind of like tentatively, agreed upon that they would, chill out until that point. But shortly after that, Sam was snapped out of existence, and then by the end of Endgame, like he came back briefly, but like,
all right, Gulliver, this is why I never want to face you in a debate again. You're absolutely right.
I think the benefit of the boat, is that it represents something to Sam, that something else outside of, that is something outside of his identity as a soldier and his identity as Falcon. And the fact that he was, gone for 5 years means that this boat was in disrepair while he wasn't there to help out. And like the fact that his sister's been like struggling, it gives him a concrete reason to walk away from being Captain America. That's not just, well, I'm not Steve. Because it's something that he wants to do. But I think the show kind of does a good job of, showing that, like, he can't use the boat as an excuse forever. And like once he figures
also
out,
parallels the symbol of the shield.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I think once he gets a handle on that, and like, especially in episode 5, when he and Bucky are like working on the ship together, so fucking great. Mm-hmm. So great. And then like, it's kind of that build up towards, he's not only, rebuilding the ship, he's also kind of rebuilding who he is personally and what he stands for.
Sure. So just to dial in on Mackie for a second. So Malcolm Spellman has kind of spoken about the premise of the show very much being logically, okay, so we're going to do a show about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and obviously the next stage is Falcon Cap. Now, how are we going to get there? Well, we're going to take what we have, which is that ending exchange from Endgame. The whole it feels like someone else's. It isn't. So, but just the fact that is Sam Wilson's first reaction, that initial hesitation, that's where you glom on to. Mm-hmm. With the show, it's like, and it was just that wonderful left
the reason
turn.
He's worthy.
Yeah.
And to use a Thor metaphor, the fact that he is hesitant is a good reason to trust that he will be a good choice for the Shield.
And again, it's kind
whoever
of this.
says like, "Yeah, I'm totally worthy," is probably overconfident, way too brash.
Yeah, it's
We'll get there. We'll get there.
It's the great left turn of believability and building up, Falcon Cap by inverting it somewhat. Where again, the comic kind of, the comics kind of hit that skepticism after he took on the mantle, where logically there would be, kind of a, kind of some doubt beforehand of like, I've always loved that in Mackey's performance. It's not so much a mystery, but it's kind of like an internalization of. You're focusing on him, like, okay, so he's donating the shield to the Smithsonian, out of respect, because again, it's still like, obviously it was Steve Rogers and he wants to do right by it, but there's a reason Sam isn't taking that shield, and basically through the Isaiah Bradley story, we really highlight deep down what that reason was, and we kind of bring it to the surface via the Bradley thing, is that he doesn't think the world's going to accept it, and maybe like it's a responsibility too great for his shoulders. There's the doubts and the hesitations are coming out there, and he's also kind of using the boat somewhat to deflect things, where there's work to be done on the home front, which of course leads to, I think, each episode very much kind of has like kind of a big touchstone moment. Of course, the bank loan scene for me that's a classic kind of Marvel moment of like it's very much kind of a Spider-Man moment in Marvel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You give the hero just this great mundane.
It's the Spider-Man 2, like, well, we at least get the toaster, right?
Nope, no toaster.
It's that.
To open a checking account like $300 or $500.
I gotta tell you, man, my heart always breaks for Rosemary Harris in that moment. Like, she has a lot of heartbreaking moments in the Spider-Man movies, but that's
come on, Joel McHale, give her the toaster, man. Come on. But seriously, though, that moment of we had that whammo blammo awesome opening of Falcon, the amazing aerial rescue, fighting Batroc, the Leaper and company with the wingsuits, and it's like halfway practically done through the thing.
I will say with this, the action in this show is like cinematic, like absolutely cinema quality,
right out the gate.
WandaVision had excellent production values, and like it was impeccable as far as recreating the TV sitcoms and everything. But as far as like when we got to the actual action, like it kind of felt like like pseudo phase 1, early phase 2 action at best, Yeah.
But
that's like a Guardians of the Galaxy fight scene, just loud and chaotic. And
right.
Not really sure what's happening most of the time.
That's what I'm saying. But just that bank scene, though, we take kind of that mundane premise that we've seen, but we're not playing it for laughs at all. It is just kind of this, like, all the good that he does in that opening scene, which we just used an example of. He's the man helped stop Thanos, help bring everyone back in part. He has the big on your left reveal moment for the portal scene. All of that, and it's just, but we have that uncomfortable, wonderfully uncomfortable real world tone of like, all that good he does, and we can't cut him a break. He put in the work for like the financial plan and everything, and it's just that we're just hitting the perfect notes in that scene. I think that really was the big flag plan. Like, this show is going to be something a little different than what we were all expecting, and it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah. The first episode does suffer from the burden of exposition a fair bit.
Sure, but that's the thing.
I feel like it's just got a slow pace to it. I mean, especially compared to WandaVision. Like, WandaVision just like literally like throws the audience in at the deep end. Right. It's like, okay, figure it out.
To be fair, all Disney Plus shows, from at least for this first phase of, let's just say this year's worth of Disney Plus shows, probably with the exception of What If, are going to be sidled with, we have to set up, the post-blip status quo. And, of course, we got the immediate version of that with WandaVision. That's 9 days after. This is 6 months after, and the big point being 6 months, much like, sadly, the real world in the midst of crisis, we still haven't figured things out. Like,
big time.
And I appreciated that, and we're seeing the complexities that are going to be really addressed for the world stage by episode 6. So I like how we're kind of building all that in there. But speaking of just kind of mourning and kind of grieving and such, I mean, Bucky. So we have a Bucky without Cap here, who is figuring out who he is now after he's essentially he's fixed up, but he's not in a war. He's not at war. He's not like we've gotten a break from the action for a change with Bucky, because he's never truly had time to process what next. And I guess long term, what we're doing here is that we're seeing Bucky make the transition from soldier ultimately to hero by kind of that rescue scene in episode 6 when he's saving the hostages. Yeah, it's kind of that logical. We can't put him in the Stars and Stripes because Bucky's got to work through a lot of things, and that would have been.
I feel like Bucky's endgame is going to be just like taking on the moniker of White Wolf fully.
I think it's entirely possible. Yeah.
So Bucky, unfortunately, I think is a little underrated this season compared to Sam. I like everything they give him, and I think Sebastian Stan, like every time he shows up, he just gets more and more comfortable with the role, and I really like that. They've done a great job of developing him, but as far as characterization goes, I feel like it is very much kind of like he kind of gets the leftovers as far as character development. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And he does go on a journey. I just feel like his journey in this show is kind of on fast forward compared to Sam's in a way. Does that make sense?
Well, you know what the key is to making kind of that stuff natural for, I think, Bucky and Sam? It's that there's a lot of real world elements from these actors that have been kind of fused in their characters, I think, in a good way. I'm not saying to the same degree, but kind of like a Downey Jr. kind of Iron Man thing, where he kind of became that character in a sense. And Chris Evans, even to a lesser degree, he's also kind of become that character in real life in terms of he's made kind of some political. He stood up to some guys politically, and people have kind of taken notice. Like, man, Evans, he's really kind of playing things the way we should play things on social media, and. Like Sebastian Stan, real life, he does therapy, and we kind of brought that to the Bucky character here. And also, something I kind of found out during the little kind of making of thing, Anthony Mackie, good old Mackie, Mr. Cut the Check himself, he from Louisiana. And I think a lot of that definitely, like Sam Wilson, if I recall from the comics, he was just from Brooklyn, or he was from New York. So I think the Bronx, it was either in Harlem or the Bronx, technically. I think it was Harlem in the comics, and I think he's a New Yorker.
Tiki, I forwarded you a Bucky meme.
Oh,
I don't know if it's good enough to share, but had me laughing pretty hard when I first saw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to share it just because I want to keep with the flow of the podcast. But
sure.
That's very funny. That's very funny. Oh, God bless Chappelle. God bless Chappelle.
Yeah. So. Point being, and also I like once we get to their dynamic, we kind of bring it back, kind of the natural kind of Mackie and Sebastian Stan, all the press junkets sort of like these guys have great chemistry. We've kind of gleamed in like moments like Civil War, they'll move your seat up gag, and we're kind of taking that, adding some dramatic heft once we get into like the root of like why these two guys are a little kind of having their back and forth, which I thought was quite good. But just in setting things up here is with that therapy scene, I love how he has the 3 rules, like the 3 rules in the therapy with Dr. Rayner's actually a good therapist. And, we have this whole, making amends. I am James Bucky Barnes. I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. You're part of my effort to make amends. He gives that smile. It's great.
Strained smile.
Yeah.
Good performance of somebody who is trying really hard, but also couldn't care less. Because he's not doing it because he wants to do it yet. He's still in the stage where he's like, I've survived this long. I'll just figure it out on my own. I'll just deal with it in my own way. Nobody can help me. I'm just suffering in silence. I'll just be a little edgelord emo boy over here.
So we have the Nakajima of it all, Mr. Nakajima, where we have that utterly tragic reveal that the Winter Soldier killed Yori's son, and Bucky just does not know how to make amends for that. And he's just kind of left in this doomed to fail friendship where, again, he likes the guy and they're having a good time, but he's kind of trying to be there for him and help him out. But it's just, you feel so bad for him. It's a fact, it's Bucky's kind of man out of the ice thing where, Cap was like, the man out of the ice doesn't want the same things that he wanted way back when. In this case, the Winter Soldier prevents Bucky from truly moving on things. Like, he also is a victim in all this. It's so tricky because, again, he was not in control of his actions, but he was there the whole ride. And it's so sad just to see him go through that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Gulliver, what do you think of Torres? We had Joaquin Torres in this episode, presumably the next Falcon.
Yeah, I think the characterization is good. He didn't have a ton of screen time in any of the episodes really, and like they're clearly leaving it open to set up the second Falcon when Sam hands off the broken wings and he says keep them, like that's clearly a nod in that direction. But like I feel like he just didn't get enough screen time to really see a whole lot of his character develop. He's clearly like dedicated. And he's showing some of like the signs of the heroic characters that the MCU comes to love. And it would be great to see a Latinx character take stage. We haven't really gotten to that point yet, but yeah, I mean, I'm completely open to the possibilities there.
Yeah, he seemed very likable and proactive. He had kind of a little spark of what Sam had in Winter Soldier, which I kind of glommed onto with this Torres character. And also, we kind of used Torres as a springboard to kind of exposit what the deal with the Flag Smashers is, which, again, we're kind of getting them in here before we really have the the Carly of it all. But I mean, the Flag Smashers basically in premise, and I think for me, the Flag Smashers long game of it all is that I can invest in the Flag Smashers as a group, and unfortunately, after episode 4, Carly, we kind of lose any potential of like the lead Flag Smasher having characterization. But the group as itself is I think quite fascinating. This whole anti-nationalist.
I mean, I like the symbolism of it. Like, I like the unified masks and everything like that. Like, visually, it's nice.
And we kind of took the old, like, the fan thing of, like, these ridiculous kind of fan things of Thanos was right or the villain was right. And we've kind of taken that and we've kind of legitimized it in a sense. And they kind of connected with the border tension within that opening action sequence. Like, if we reach this certain point, then we're going to land in real trouble because we still have the borders and everything.
All right. Yeah. I just think I think if Disney was not planning on having the title characters meet up in episode 1, then I really think it was a mistake to not release episode 1 and 2 together.
That's a fair point.
That was like a real hit on the pacing of the show for me. Was and I got to tell you, like I try and watch these with my dad, and my dad was really struggling with it just because of the pacing. But yeah, I don't know. I really feel like episode 1, they really could have, at the very least, had Sam and Bucky together at one point. If not, I honestly think that opening the whole show by introducing John Walker would have been an interesting way to go.
That's a good idea because that's the thing. Sam and Bucky are not palsy. Yeah, like they were always like they were a friend. They were connected through a friend of a friend.
I feel like at the very least throwing in John Walker into the mix, just as a tease, maybe even just as like you see him just in a propaganda film. You don't really meet the man himself yet. I feel like just a tease at John Walker would
maybe. But I still love that whole like who's this new guy who shows up at the end, and also what's kind of cool about that reveal too in the rewatch is that. We have Rhodey in this episode, and of course, Rhodey very much kind of playing the flag for the Armor Wars. Well, I love the idea that both Rhodey and Sam are somewhat in the same boat here, and they're very much connected by the Air Force, which makes sense. They would interact. Mm-hmm. And he basically warns that, hey, he's people need symbols in these uncertain times. And essentially, I mean, he's not really saying this, but, especially with the Rhodey of it all, there's kind of an Iron Man 2 escalation factor and the government interference factor at play, where if you don't act, if you don't take a stance or you don't do something about all this kind of uncertainty, they're going to do it for you, and that comes to pass with John Walker, which I think probably would transition this to the next episode.
All right, this might be my favorite episode of the season.
I think 2 and 4 are possibly the best episodes of the season.
I feel like 4 definitely has the best moment, but I feel like this one is the most compelling from beginning to end as far as like. I really love all the stuff with John Walker. I love how ambiguous he is from the very beginning. I love how it's like you can tell like Wyatt Russell did such a great job of like this guy is like he's clearly a dick, right? Like from the very get-go, it's like okay, there is definitely like an unlikable quality to this
but
guy.
He doesn't mean to be, and that's what's interesting about him.
Right. That's exactly what's interesting about it. That's what I was hoping for with the character, and that's exactly what Wyatt Russell delivered on. So I'm honestly stoked for this guy. I think he's going to be a great addition to the MCU moving forward.
Let me tell you something really cool about John Walker. I kind of found out when we did like a little making of thing. I kind of looked into it a little bit. So the Flag Smashers, again, it was just one guy called Carl Morgenthau, and he was pretty much like just like a lone anti-nationalist guy. So what they did is, they basically, or in that story, you had the John Walker U.S. agent character. So they've taken a lot of elements from, basically that guy, took hostages, and then a U.S. agent was in that story. So we've kind of taken the basis of that story, and we've kind of changed certain things to kind of meld into kind of the state and status quo of the MCU, along with, okay, well, logically, who would we introduce at this point in the whole, like, who's going to be the next Captain America? Well, we had U.S. agent. That was a whole thing. So let's do that. I mean, they're all kind of introduced at the same point. Let's put these elements in the same stirring pot. Let's do it.
Yeah, I also feel like the episode was firing on all cylinders with the Sam and Bucky stuff. I heard some people say that the therapy scene was a little cringe, like it was a little contrived, but I mean, yeah, it was a little contrived, but like it still was performed very well. And
it had a dramatic punch at the end of it, though, which I think saved it. I think that had it just been like a comedy shtick, it would have been okay. It's funny, but did we need it? But in this case, like, no, we really set up that these guys, yeah, they are not buddies yet. They're kind of like they're really. My favorite moment in the episode, from the marketing standpoint, it was minorly spoiled, but I was like so happy to get it. It's like after everything we went through in the first episode, like the two of them, the big gobsmacking, like, well, we knew it was coming, let's face it, but the whole like, and your new Captain America is this guy, not Falcon. And there's this having the first thing that Bucky says, you shouldn't have given up the shield.
That is good. That is good. Like, yeah,
because it makes of course it'd be ticked off. Like they had the big awesome moment at the end of Endgame. You just completely threw it out the window. What gives? I was going to train you. What happened? We're going to throw the shield around. Oh yeah, wait more.
The scene with the two of them with the therapist where they're like knee to knee up close with each other was heavily improvised. Like they had like an original script that they were working with, but like the therapist actor whose name I'm completely forgetting.
I think it's Amy Aquino or something like that.
Okay. Was like asking questions that were not in the script.
Oh God!
And like seeing what they did, and then they just started going into this like rant with each other, and so I heard that there was some interesting developments with that, and I wonder how much of it is was scripted and how much of it was just the these two guys venting their characters' feelings back and forth to kind of put it all on the table.
Oh, I buy it. And again, legitimizing just kind of the banter they naturally have, but adding kind of a dramatic fine point to it, where you turning down that shield was a really big insult to me. That really hurt my feelings. And if Steve was wrong about you, what does that mean about me? The whole arc that we had was that he believed in me. If that's wrong, I got nothing.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, just to double back to John Walker. Seriously, I want to get this in there. The reason John Walker works is I was so, just with the title of the episode, the whole Star Spangled Man of it all, just with that introduction, him going on that football field and everything. It's so genius to take, in this episode specifically, we have essentially two Cap hopefuls. Not counting Sam. I'm talking like Isaiah Bradley and Walker. We have our two, through historically, kind of our Cap hopefuls, and they very much had their parallels to Steve Rogers. Very much threaded through the Sam Wilson arc, where the senator, our bearded senator guy in the government, they want a Cap who's going to play along with the Accords and everything. Again, it's a question whether the Accords are still intact. I think they are. I haven't really done everything against it, but the point being, someone's going to play ball with the government. And what we do is we return an update. We do this updated version of the USO Cap from way back when, hence the Star Spangled Man. We have like a Good Morning America rollout for the guy. Of the Cap who's going to play ball, who we're kind of marketing to the people as like, hey, remember Steve Rogers, all the fuzzy feelings you had about him? Transferred to this guy. He's all American. He's a Russell. Look at him. And it's just like this all-American choice, which absolutely proves Isaiah Bradley's point about they're gonna pick a guy that makes everyone feel safe. They're gonna go that along with the whole shady government thing that Julie Louis-Dreyfus points out later. The Val points out with the shield. Like the government doesn't even have claim to that shield, and they handed it to this guy because it's Wakandan. They have no right to that shield.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
Right. But yeah, generally speaking, I think this episode has it's got a lot of tension with Walker. Walker is just set up really well. I would say maybe some of the best kind of like buddy cops sort of like back and forth bickering that Sam and Bucky have. And I think probably the reason why it's some of the best is because, obviously the whole point of the show is them kind of like mending fences throughout. So so this is where they're really at each other's throats in a fun way. And that's kind of another thing that I think of with this episode.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Tiki, you're right. This episode has everything. The truck fight's awesome, but the big thing we got to talk a little bit more about Isaiah Bradley.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. By all means.
So Isaiah Bradley is what makes the show next level. Just that we woven in the truth, red, white, and black into the MCU, and in a place that absolutely made sense with, this, the whole Korean War encounter with the Winter Soldiers. Hearing that story makes me excited.
Yeah.
It's the idea there was and we're going to probably see this a little bit in Black Widow too. There was a super soldiers arm race. We had Hydra's super soldier with Bucky. You have Red Guardian for Russia's winter. Russia's super soldier. We have like the U.S. is stabbed with the Incredible Hulk, which did not go well. It's just really interesting to kind of see this, and again it's this the other potential Captain America that was lost to history, and it's the idea that this was the other success story with the super soldier team. It didn't go belly up like Bruce Banner or the Abomination. This was a success story that, because we abused and failed this man, we lost an actual candidate. Where the idea is like, it seems like he was the most well-adjusted out of his unit and everything, and that he a good man will be magnified with the serum. This was a good man who was magnified, but we treat him like crap. And now we lost a potential edge and a potential kind of like benefit to society, and it's horrible.
Right.
And the way we do in the episode, they have that layered sequence, like the three really great, kind of commentaries on kind of the African American experience in three very differing ways. We have like the comedic, like Black Falcon conversation, to the Isaiah Bradley reveal, to the police stop, which is it's like just didn't recognize him without the goggles. Oh my god, it's like.
As a resident of Minneapolis, I understand all too well.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah.
How often that kind of shit happens.
Ooh.
I'm just still like gobsmacked by how in succession we had those three scenes and how well they threaded together and how they served the greater narrative. It's great.
Yeah, I think Isaiah, he's also a character where it's like all three of his appearances are fantastic, but he just adds more and more to the show every time he appears. It's just like basically all of the really great kind of like touchstone thematic things that the show is touching on kind of orbit around him.
Isaiah's kind of like the great Chekhov's gun of the story, in that like Sam is in that room with him while Bucky's doing most of the talking. We're filling it. Okay, here's the
Chekhov's museum gallery.
Sure. If that helps. We just have, it's like we have just like we tee up. Okay, we have a super soldier, and Sam is just utterly gobsmacked, and Sam doesn't get a word in that conversation. So these guys have to have a real conversation, or else we're gonna call BS of the highest order. You put him in that scene, and we never see Isaiah again. That's not going to happen. We're going to get more of him. We have to.
Yeah, I was going to be really disappointed if he wasn't.
And I will contend that I'll loop back around to Bucky just really quick here. I absolutely think that Yuri should have gotten at least one or two more scenes. Like, because I feel like with Yuri, it's kind of just like a weird bookend where it should have. I feel like the bookend scene with Yuri is like it's cathartic enough, but I feel like it could have been a lot more. I feel like it could have been on the same levels of the Isaiah Bradley payoff with the museum if we would have spent just a little bit more time with Yuri as a character.
I mean, Tiki. A part of me agrees. Either had we extended the Yuri thing, or had we gotten him in episode 5. But if we put him in
Just
episode
one
5,
more
then
conversation. That's all I'm asking for. Is just one more conversation with the two of them.
that's true. But then again, we don't have really the two, Bucky and Sam really helping each other through their arc in 5. If we take Bucky out of Louisiana, that's the problem. But I hear, yeah.
I get you. All right.
All right. So I guess we go to the 3 then.
Oh God, do we have to?
Yes.
Power Broker. I mean, this is the episode that has Zemo in it, so
Yes.
in all fairness, that is great. But
and Madripoor.
That's also wonderful. The great world building there. Some of my favorite world building in the MCU, I think, is kind of like building out these kind of like shady, almost like Tatooine type environments. Where it's sort of like on the edges of the of the law. Like I'm really digging that. But so guys, can we just let's just make a blanket statement right now? The Power Broker plot is a complete flop, right? It's I think it's a complete flop.
I think it's entirely red herring. Like, it's intended to distract you from the rest of the things that are happening.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just I first of all, I really don't even feel like it was like Dragon. Like, you were convinced that it wasn't going to be Sharon, but like I just, to me, it was one of those things. Like, it was almost as obvious as as the Agatha reveal in WandaVision, where it's like, I feel like the fans kind of called it before the episode even aired.
Well, I don't. Agatha was one you could actually call before it aired, because if Agatha and the whole A-related name, that one's pretty cut and dry. But Sharon Carter, though, here's the thing. At the end of the day, with Sharon Carter and with the whole Power Broker, also, I mean, we have a jaded Sharon Carter because every system she's trusted in has let her down fundamentally, which of course let her be a fugitive and kind of led her to let her assumedly to villainy. Now, by the way, and when someone made like a genius call, which I can only assume is she technically was blipped, but here's the thing, because her name is like on the little carousel of all the people who were blipped in in the Tony Stark. But here's the thing, though. Scott Lang was also on there, and we didn't know where he was, and he was not blipped. So I would attest that, hey, like, she was off the grid. We couldn't find her. She didn't pick up a phone.
I like that theory. I like that.
That makes sense. I mean, if she's on the run, how are we going to call her? How are we going to find out? The point being, so just taking that assumption, so for 7 years something happened that we didn't see. Now the problem is we never. I think the Power Broker story doesn't work because we don't have all the stuff there, and I think we're missing a red herring to really make it count. And that's the sad truth, is that it doesn't amount to anything. Hence it just being straightforward. Like, we may have a Power Broker, but it's probably going to be her.
I feel like if they kind of lean into what I was talking about earlier with, like, the way that we as a society treat our veterans and the way that we treat others outside of our own circle of understanding, if they play into that and, like, she worked really hard and then got absolutely screwed over by the government and treated terribly, then this might have been the only viable option for her to kind of rebuild herself with the skills that she had. So if they play it that way in like a future stuff, then I think what they have there is set up for it. But if they don't capitalize on that, then it is kind of a a letdown. It'd be a bit of a
yeah.
But
plus
there's soggy
like
plot
kind
line.
of the MO for the MCU to kind of like, none of us really, like, Wanda did not move off the screen in Age of Ultron. Like, it took us a long time to get to the point where Wanda and Vision were like the biggest names on Twitter for a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I do have faith that with Sharon Carter, I do think that that is the interesting thing with the MCU, is that even if something isn't landing with you right now, it's definitely got potential to to blossom in the future. And I don't know, I'm like very cautiously optimistic that the Power Broker stuff will get more interesting in the future.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the word is that she's going to have a big part in Armor Wars, which if that's the case, that could be really interesting. But that said, that doesn't help me in the interim because what we have in the interim is all assumptions on how she became the power brokers. The word is, think about it. If you really think about it, okay, so Zemo has met or at least knows directly who the power broker is, and it was a guy. So presumably that guy like disappeared in the blip or Sharon killed him or something. And the fact is, okay, so Sharon has seen Zemo, and she points him in the direction of Nagel, the doctor. And knowing that Zemo's probably going to kill this guy, she basically killed off her golden goose. Why would she do that? So things aren't precisely lining up with her line of logic, I imagine. So that's what I'm saying. Like, the whole purpose of Sharon is that she's helping nudge Sam's arc, the whole, like, like showing that, he's optimistic in the face of her justified skepticism on matters, given how she was kind of mistreated for doing the right thing in very corrupt systems. And also, it's like, hey, we're including an Agent Carter for the next generation of our kind of team cap that we're building here. That's kind of what, assumably, the intent was. And we didn't do that, and it's... I mean, that's the thing. I can still glom on to why she's jaded, but I just don't know how she goes from jaded to being, I'm going to be the power broker. I'm going to be a crime boss.
Right,
that's
right.
Then again, I don't think we're going to have those answers to Armor Wars, so that's a problem.
But like I said, when we do get those answers, if they, assuming they do line up, and Gulliver, I absolutely like what you're throwing out there. Like if we see just the, just her being completely just, tossed aside, just, I could absolutely, like, if we connect with her motivation, that is the key to any good villain. So
and again, she does have a good motivation. I just want to know why.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So I fear the week to week might be a risk going forward on these Disney Plus shows, that we could have like a power, like Power Broker is kind of like an escalation.
And I argue that I still argue that Disney should kind of like reevaluate like something like WandaVision or Loki. Yeah, that's probably going to work better week to week. Something like Falcon, Winter Soldier, or maybe Miss Marvel might work better as like a drop all at once kind of deal.
Sure.
I hadn't thought about Miss Marvel. That would be interesting.
Gulliver, the only reason Miss Marvel's as prominently on my mind as it is because we are very familiar with the actor who plays her brother.
Yes, Sagar Sheikh.
Like, we have reviewed a ton of comedy sketches that he's been in.
Oh, really?
Yes. On Just Giglets. He's I believe he does. Like, what is it? Is it the Bollywood Report? It's Bollywood something. He has a podcast as well talking about Bollywood stuff.
But yeah, like that's definitely going to be like. I feel like for us, that's probably going to be the biggest. Like, oh look, like he's not necessarily a friend, but he's very much a friend of a friend, right, Dragon?
Sure.
So it's it's going to be like the most like 6 degrees. Like, oh, I'm 2 degrees separated from the MCU, just 2 degrees.
Anyway, so the Zemo of it all. We got to talk about Zemo a little bit more here. So
Zemo absolutely kills it, man. And this Zemo was like what I was saying earlier about how initially a character might not make the biggest impression, but then they can always blossom into something more. Exhibit A, Zemo. Just I really thought that in Civil War, like his motive made sense, but I really didn't think he leapt off the screen all that much. And here, my God, does he leap off the screen?
We use Zemo not only for the Civil War clout, but he connects. Think about it, story-wise, he connects to Bucky, to Sharon, to the Wakandans. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of links there. It makes a lot of sense, and of course, classic Captain America villain. So we're doing a lot with Zemo, which makes sense. He would pop up here, but he aids. Given he also story-wise, he gives Sam and Bucky perspective on super soldiers and the complexities to these choices.
Mm-hmm. We're also getting the sense of like, who Zemo is as a person more, because like we saw Zemo
outside of just like the tragedy of his family.
Right. We saw Zemo as an operative, in Civil War, and that's very, we still get glimpses of that in this show, but like after he's been in prison for a while, he's probably not necessarily motivated to be an operative as much as he is to enjoy the life outside of jail for a while.
Hence the dancing.
Yeah,
with the Lethal Weapon
also
comparison,
improvised.
there's been a lot. I think the best
Yeah.
comparison of the show has been with the Lethal Weapon thing. He's Leo Getz from Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, is that
he's
the,
the Joe
that-
Pesci character.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah.
The dance moves were also apparently improvised.
But they
Oh, I
were
can totally, yeah.
Absolutely critical.
put on a 10-hour loop.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but Kyle made a video that's
And it went pretty
with
viral, right?
Yeah, it kind of went viral. It's got more views on it than our finale of Super Academy does.
You know, folks,
Yeah,
go check out Super Academy if you want.
Especially the finale. I still love that finale for Super
Seriously,
Academy. It's so good. It has like the perfect.
I don't want you to feel down on that, Gulliver. That was a fluke. You know, like memes, you know the nature.
Yeah, memes travel at the speed of light. It's just the way they are, and it was so good. In case you haven't seen it, it's the Zemo dance, but with the system is down from Homestar Runner. It's real good.
Well, yeah, we gave him the whole Baron background story. I mean, I expected to get him in the mask because the marketing. I was so happy to get him in the mask. It was like the one thing I love. It. The story behind it is like they literally put up the Civil War concept art. Like, let's use that. We want that. Everyone wants. Let's do it. We did it at least once, and we called him the Baron. My God, we did the Baron thing. Yes.
All right. Really quick, we got Orange Crush 76 in the comments here. He says, "Hey guys, overall, I really like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. My favorite character had to be John Walker."
So let's talk about the one John Walker bit, the big prominent John Walker bit we had in the episode. We had the big spitting in the face moment in episode 3. I love that with John Walker's his big fatal flaws. One of my favorite things in the episode is to connect our themes here. So I love Zemo talking about the flaws of super soldiers. Like, of course, one of my favorite bits between him and Captain America in Civil War. One of the only bits they really have is the whole, he walks right up to him and says, I've heard all about you. I've studied you for such a time. I noticed like the slightest bit of green in your perfect blue eyes. So he points out the flaw in the super soldier. And we use that here. We're talking about how we put super soldiers on pedestals. And because of that, we forget their flaws. Not only a great callback, but connects to John Walker. His flaw is that he expects everyone, he buys into his own symbol before he buys into himself. And because of that, he demands respect for, like, I'm Captain America. When someone spits in his face, do you know who I am? And there's the character weakness right there. It's that he's lost sight of who he is. Like, he's trained to be Captain America. He's trained to do the grenade move, but he doesn't do it on instinct, buddy. He doesn't.
And his pride is so weak, which is like just this, he's so emotionally fragile the way that so many proud people are. Like,
and he's done a lot of brave things. Like, let's not make any mistake there. He's saved a lot of people. He's also lived with that trauma too.
Yeah.
People he couldn't save.
It's the danger of nationalism is finding yourself above criticism.
Oh yeah, which very much circles around our big flag smasher theme. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. In general, Madripoor, great location. I was so shocked and delayed to find it was like kind of a patch shave locations. There's some Atlanta in there with the back alleys. It's kind of a little bit. It's a little bit of Vietnam. It just made this great kind of bigger than life location. Looks very kind of Hong Kong inspired. It's It's like the high town, low town thing. I just love this undercover mission plot too. With I think now that we've gotten all the pieces here, I like that we really put Bucky. We face him with his Winter Soldier trauma that he has to pretend to be the Winter Soldier in this scene, and it really kind of kind of representation of his fears that he can slide into it really easily. It's kind of might be easier to be the Winter Soldier than it is to move past the Winter Soldier. I think it's what scares him.
But on a lighter note, we get the Smiling Tiger.
True. Yeah.
Smiling Tiger is a genius way that we keep the the racial struggle present, but also in a humorous way. Like, we're talking about Marvin Gaye, and we're also we're dressing Sam like Snap Wilson from way back in the day with the pimp look.
Yeah. Yeah. My only qualm with Madripoor is that, it's supposed to be somewhere in Asia. They don't really specify where, but it's sure full of a lot of white people and not very many Asian people.
I don't know. I think that might be kind of the point, though, where it's kind of like this hub of people just kind of sticking out, but it kind of like no one's going to talk about it.
Yeah, Could
I
be.
don't necessarily know if that's a point, but I could read it that way.
Well, fine, not the point, but I think it's something kind of added to it. I don't know.
All right.
Logic. If I'm looking for something here, I don't know. By the way, I wonder if Madripoor is going to be in Shang-Chi. By the way,
Could be. It's a big, like, I mean, we've got a trailer now, so we kind of know some of the parts of the plot, but like, it's such a big like question mark for me because while there is plenty of comics history for Shang-Chi, it's definitely like it's something that's been depicted in many, many different lights. They've shown this character in many different formats, and it's something that they could really take the opportunity to kind of give a soft reboot to and push in a new direction, which is something that we have seen in the MCU before. But yeah, I'm really curious how much of the comics are going to be a part of that movie versus how much of it is going to be forging a new version of this character for the the current generation of readers. So while the character is absolutely interesting, it's a character that has a lot of connection to. And I know I said at the beginning of this I wasn't going to get into Shang-Chi, and now I'm like on this thought train. But like, there's a lot of connection to the idea of Orientalism, like the time when kung fu movies got
it's very much ruined the
popular.
whole the Fu Manchu origins of Shang-Chi,
Right.
which they were very much breaking away from, but doing it in a really interesting way with the Mandarin. But yeah,
right. So I'm curious to see what direction they go in and what their interpretation is. I have this is another tangent, but I have a suggestion for another podcast that we do, which I looked it up a couple of days ago to see like what's Daniel Destin Cretton directed before, and he did a documentary that came out in like 2007 that I watched when I was like in my first semester at film school.
Oh wow!
That no joke made me like documentaries again.
Oh
really?
Wow!
It was so good, and like I had no idea that he was.
That's what I want to hear, Gulliver. Yeah.
So
yeah, we love documentaries.
We should do a documentary because we should do a podcast about that film.
So that's the same guy who directed Shang-Chi, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll absolutely do that, kind of like building up to that movie for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, up until that point, like as a teenager, just like documentary's so boring, whatever, and like
Gulliver, you're talking to like perhaps the two biggest doc fans on the internet.
my favorite movie of 2020
now.
Was a documentary.
Yeah, I like documentaries now. I have no problem with them, but like as a teenager who was just starting his like college journey and was like really wanting to do cool nerdy films that was just like documentary at the time felt like this is so lame, and like I saw this and I was like, nope, changed my whole mind. No, this is great. Let's do documentary projects now. So like, yeah. All right, tangent over. Sorry.
Okay, one thing before we move on, we'll just transition right into the next one. We get Wilford Nagel in this, the little creepy scientist from Truth. We made him, well, at least we made him uber creepy here. I mean, he's already kind of creepy in that story. We doubled down here. I really like, just to connect to Sharon Carter of it all, is that he was kind of Operation Paperclipped from Hydra into the CIA after Winter Soldier, and in doing that, he that's how he got Isaiah Bradley's blood to crack the code on the super soldier serum that we have the 20 vials of in this show. And again, it kind of shows you assumedly how Sharon Carter found him, just given her experience in the CIA. She probably kind of found him through that years later. And also again, kind of the corruption within the system. There's how like evil stuff happened because we did all the shady stuff in our history, and that's kind of how it all fell into place. Just found that really interesting in correlation to the power broker story. I wish maybe we stuck the landing a little bit on that better, just give him a little bit more of a why, but still it's like again that the tapestry is nicely woven. I gotta give it points.
All right. So yeah, let's move on to the whole world is watching. And yeah, I think obviously the end of this episode is probably the peak of this show, right? Like it really is like, I mean, maybe outside of some of the Isaiah Bradley stuff we get a little later. But I mean, at least in terms of like, just water cooler conversation and just like, iconic in all the wrong ways. That final shot of John Walker with the shield and the blood is just, I mean, that's got to go down as like one of the most shocking moments in the history of the MCU.
I love it. So we've desecrated the symbol of the shield in a season all about kind of the sanctity of symbols, and it's all about symbolism and legacy and all that. We've sanctified it. We killed this man very Civil War style, like the way Cap could have killed Tony if he was in a really bad mood, but he didn't.
Yeah.
But, oh my God. The fact is, there was a lot of debate about John Walker is a very polarizing character in the fan community. A lot of people were like,
which means they did their job.
I know.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to, that's what I keep trying to explain to him. What's the point, though? He's supposed to be polarizing. But it's some people say like, oh yeah, well Cap killed people. Yes, he did. But here's the difference, okay, kids? Let me explain it. Very simple. Steve Rogers never killed an enemy begging for his life. That's the difference.
Yes.
No one's saying, Blaze, I didn't even do it. And plus, it was the ex-Cap fan that got killed. That makes it even more tragic. The guy used to be a fan of Cap as a boy.
Oh God.
But there's the death of we've been. I'm sure Gulliver, you will, but also like to bring this up. Of course, a Tick alumni, Clee Bennett, playing Battlestar. It's a shame he died. We killed Battlestar. We made it really wonderfully dramatic for the John Walker character.
Right, and there's definitely the sense that like either he was going to die to further the storyline of John Walker from like the moment that it was introduced in the Battlestar costume. We kind of knew that like either that's going to happen or like at some point they're going to part ways in some way. Because
my theory, I'm sorry, Jake, go
ahead.
My theory was that at a point Battlestar was going to have like kind of a Winter Soldier face-off with John Walker, where he would have to basically the Bucky side of it would have to talk him down, or basically try to do the fight from that. But we didn't go that way. But still, it was just seeing just how shaken Walker was, and also giving Battlestar that moment, kind of quoting the Erskine thing from First Avenger, the whole whatever's there just magnifies, which basically gave him an argument for, you should take the serum. I would take the serum, but I would say you should if you had the chance.
Yeah.
I did love the fake out with Zemo, where it's like, oh, is he going to take it? Is he going to take? No, of course he's not going to fucking take it.
We just see him like just stepping on it, man. It's like right now. Just seeing Zemo gets things done. If we learned anything about Zemo in the MCU, he gets it. The man broke up the Avengers. He caused the Great Rift. Zemo gets it done. But you know who else gets it done in this episode?
Who?
The Dora Milaje.
Oh yeah.
Good God. I mean, if I've learned one thing in life, gentlemen, it's don't F with the Dora Milaje. Never F with the Dora Milaje. It's a credo to live life by. Like, if the Dora Milaje are gunning for you, just give up hope.
True facts.
And it's such a brilliant no-brainer, isn't it, to include Wakanda in a show about the Black experience? I just thought that was like, how did I not think of that?
Not only about the Black experience, but about Bucky, too. It's like Wakanda is like the perfect sort of like meeting point in the MCU between those two things.
It's a built-in connect with Bucky, with the Zemo. If Zemo's in this and he's free, guess who's not going to like that? The people who lost King T'Chaka. They're not going to be happy about that. Plus, after Endgame, the Wakandans, they're operating all over the place now.
I'm genuinely surprised that I was actually like surprised to see them.
I was really impressed that we got Io. We had Io, who was in Civil War, who was like basically there during all the stuff with the Chaka, there by the side. So I love that we brought her back and gave her a connect the Buck. I thought that was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have zero complaints about the Dora being in anything. Like,
I love
just be an all MCU from now on. That would be
that would be pretty. Plus, the way she entered the end of the last episode, like the Koye beads, or not the
Kimoyo beads.
Kimoyo, thank you, because I keep going to Okoye for obvious reasons, but no, Kimoyo beads. I love the 8-hour ticking clock device. I think this episode, story-wise, is firing on all cylinders. I think you get most bang for your buck in episode 2, but this episode, I think, just story-wise, we're firing on all cylinders. Like, we have this 8-hour ticking clock. If you know the door of Melage are coming for them, there ain't no stopping them. They're probably watching them as we speak, just waiting to make their move.
Right.
Because they're ladies of their word. And I love how John Walker's flaws complicate the situation on many levels, just where the man can't, he feels compelled to take charge because all the pressure he's put himself under. The man can't wait 10 minutes. He compromises everything, and he expects the Dora Milaje to respect him like they did Steve Rogers, which leads to a very humbling lesson.
Yep.
Yep. Now, with the Carly, I think the biggest defense for Carly in the series ever, episode 4, is her shining moment. I think it's for Carrie, Aaron Kelly. I keep wanting to say Carrie Aaron, but that's not right. Carly and Sam's conversation in episode 4, I think, was a great performance. Right, it was where all the potential for that character was for me. It's her best performance. You know what the weird thing is? In that making of, Malcolm Spellman, he really champions Carly as the glue for the series, which I don't see it.
No, I'm sorry. No.
I think in this episode it's true, but just on the grand scheme of the series, I don't think that's 100% accurate. I think Isaiah Bradley is the glue. I think he's the glue of the show, personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we geniusly we put Sam's VA skills to the test with Carly, and I think that really saves this whole scene. It really saves her, at least for this episode, where the point of the episode is to show Sam is more effective than John Walker without the super soldier serum. I think is kind of ultimately the point, especially going back to it. And we have moments like with Zemo, where deep down he respects the the heroism and the good intentions, but he doesn't like the corruption of power and the fallout and the escalation effect, like the Ultrons of the world. But he respects the crap out of Sam for you wouldn't take the serum, would you? I believe that's admirable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Just Mackie was great with that supremacist bit. Remember the whole I'm sure you love that scene, Tiki. The whole where she just comes out and says, "I'll kill anyone who gets in my way." And just Mackie going, "Wow!" No, you just made me sound like that.
Yeah, I did like that. I did like that. Mackie did call her out. Yes,
it's a great call out, though. It just makes sense.
That is specifically my issue with her character. Again, the whole I care about people so much, I am willing to kill people thing.
and again, in her defense, for this episode alone, really, it's that we see, she doesn't do the conventional thing where, hey, you're working with that crazy Captain America. I can't trust you at all. No, she calls his sister to verify. Okay, so she's not doing the classic misunderstanding where, okay, we know where we stand here. You should join me.
I honestly think her calling the sister is probably the most scary thing she does in the whole show.
It is really scary.
Obviously, killing people is more scary from a fundamental level, but on a personal level, that is pretty damn intense.
Well, she kills. It's in the same episode too, where she really directly murders somebody. So it's all scary stuff. All the good stuff there's really in this episode.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So does that leave us to transition?
I mean, I guess so. So murder.
Murder, yes.
And it ends the episode. A lot of murder, which transitions us to the aftermath of said murder. In truth, a very aptly named episode for the Isaiah Bradley of it all.
Oh yeah. This episode has absolutely grown on me, man. When I first saw the episode, I was like, oh God, we're on the boat again. Really? All right, fixing up the boat. Okay, I'm really getting on. It's first of all, the boat. I still think it's a little bit kind of okay, we're attaching it to humanity. That's good and all. Slows down the pace a little bit. That's okay. The Isaiah Bradley scene in this episode, I think, is the thesis statement of the entire show.
Carl Lumbly should get an Emmy for this show. I think he really should.
Yeah. I mean, goddamn, that line about about the dragon. Tell you know the line.
Yes,
I'm gonna butcher it.
They will never let a black man be Captain America. Any self-respecting black man wouldn't want to be.
Yeah, that line right there, man. I mean, just Jesus Christ, that hit me.
Yeah,
that's your big thesis statement for Sam's arc in the series, right there.
I feel that screen. Line is more epic and stuck with me more than any fight scene or anything in this whole show. Like that one moment.
I mean, that's Sam's challenge right there, to represent a better America and prove Isaiah Bradley wrong. Not that I have like, I'm going to prove you wrong, Isaiah, but no, like, it's like, I want to prove this man has every right to...
Old man!
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, boomer!
Rip Bucky's arm off, big whoop. Iron Man did that. But no, it's just this. It's I just love that it's this very justified place where Sam. That's the big challenge. Like, this guy's absolutely every right to believe what he believes, and that's the challenge to me. Like, it's such a great story idea of like, how the heck is Sam going to refute that, and how is he ever going to put on that suit after what he's heard this man say? And just at the end of the day, it's that Sam is optimistic. And again, I can't take credit for this, but I forget if it was necessarily. It's been the big sell line for like, why the difference between like a Sam Wilson Captain America and a Bucky Barnes Captain America is that Sam is what America should be, and Bucky is what America is. That's kind of at least at the moment before it really goes to the transition. It's kind of the dark. It's kind of the Nixon era, if you will. Like it's
that idea of him like assuming the mantle, knowing that there will be people who will just hate him for assuming the mantle, period, but still being willing to fight for what the mantle represents.
That's definitely
is on showcase there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the thing that really touched me about the thing we adapt the story of truth so well in this show, and especially in this this speech from Carl Lumbly. But what the layer that we added to it that really just got me, and like, oh my god, that's so genius! I know I keep saying genius, but put it. Don't play the drinking game, folks. It won't end well for you. Don't do that.
No, it really won't.
I'm sorry, but seriously, what's so great about it is we did the first Avenger thing with him. We put him in the exact same position as Steve Rogers, where he saved his fellow soldiers, but he got punished for it. That essentially landed him in jail and just led to this probably decades of pain for the poor guy.
Yeah, it's a great kind of like mirror image to Steve's story. Absolutely, like that's like the big heroic moment in First Avenger, and then in this movie, it's like no, that's pretty much what fucks him over.
I know, and I just thought that was just such a great idea. I never would have thought of like, let's add that, because here's the thing: there's one alteration we made to the true story. That was a very smart alteration. Would not have been the same if they just kind of adapted it so straightforward. Where in the comic, the big reason he got in the hot water is that he donned a Captain America suit. He put on Cap's costume to do his rescue mission,
right?
Which is given the big money statement. Tiki would not have made much sense if he put it on in the first place. So we can't do that. So again, they made all the smart moves in how to kind of bring the story into the MCU. But I'm sounding like a broken record. Some other stuff though. Zemo, again, I like how we gave Zemo kind of a moment with Bucky at the memorial at Sokovia. I love that he kind of eluded the Dora Milaje. I know Zemo's smart enough to know he's never going to escape the Dora Milaje, but he's smart enough to get away just to kind of like pay his respects, like to get out of prison to pay his respects. This was his real end game. Pay respects at Sokovia. And I love that he's always regretted killing T'Chaka, and he's the man does have layers to him. He makes amends with Bucky, who he used to achieve his means, and he's kind of come to the realization Bucky's a victim before he's a super soldier that needs to be put down. I thought that was great.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Is there anything, Gulliver, how do you feel about the Contessa? How do you feel about, just to give her the full name once, Contessa Valentina Electra de Fontaine?
I have thoughts, but...
How do we feel about good old Val?
She's so overtly manipulative. Like,
yeah,
I'm surprised that John Walker kind of fell for it, but he's also in like a very, vulnerable state in this episode.
I think my thesis statement for my opinions on her are basically that like she's like kind of like a slightly more interesting version of Jerry Hogarth.
Okay.
From Jessica Jones.
There's a Hogarth quality, I guess, yeah.
Like she's like Jerry Hogarth with like a little bit more power, I
think she's got a little bit more pizzazz than Jerry Hogarth. I don't know.
But yeah, I don't know, man. my whole thing is this is another, like, this is the one time that this show kind of like, fell into the whole like Paul Bettany trap of like,
Yeah, we got to stop doing this whole cameo. We got to stop
there's
talking
going to be a big cameo, guys.
They got to stop marketing these cameos, and basically they're trying to ape the whole Mando
like,
season 2 thing. They keep trying to ape it.
If we're not seeing fucking Chris Evans, then it's going to be disappointing. You know?
Either that or somehow Doctor Strange. Actually, I heard rumors of Spider-Man. Had that been the cameo, that would have been something.
Right.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have made much sense, but it would have been something.
Until Doctor Strange is that cameo.
Yes.
I do not particularly care about.
I'm convinced it would have gotten Doctor Strange in WandaVision had not been for the pandemic, by the way.
Yep. Well,
but yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm just like, I remember the moment just being like, really? Like, Elaine is your, like, I love Elaine, but
Of course, I mean, you haven't seen Veep, have you?
No.
She is amazing. That's why she's in this show. Believe me, Veep is like, that's the big.
Okay, I believe you, and I shouldn't just call her Elaine. That's.
But the point of Julia Dreyfus is good. Let's not. I'm saying she's not. She's not big cameo material, but she's good.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, like everyone likes Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but is she really like, like, oh my god, you'll never believe who's showing up?
What would have been more impressive had Black Widow come out, because that's the big thing. She's going to be she's going to tie into a bunch of the MCU stuff, as in she's going to be in Black Widow.
I'm sure she will. I just felt like it was kind of like an awkward introduction.
Oh yeah, you're right. you're right.
Yeah.
I'm
willing to withhold judgment until we see where that plot line is going.
Sure, that's totally fair.
Yeah, kind of the same with.
And you know what? And if it gets us more Wyatt Russell in the MCU, and if it gets us to U.S. Agent, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Like, my complaint isn't with the character itself. My complaint is literally all like just
seems kind of like
social media faux pas.
They're setting up some Thunderbolts and Young Avengers kind of stuff. So they could make some plot lines there.
I think it's really cool that we got this character because, very famously, she was the Jim Steranko. I'm pretty sure she was the Jim Steranko character that, the big famous, the gun in the gun in the holster shot, the layout page. So basically being kind of a possible equal to Nick Fury is a really interesting concept. But again, a little less kind of built up, but, or building it up. So I can't really complain about that.
Yeah.
Now, I have sympathy for John Walker when he's getting chewed out by he's basically being stripped of his title, and just that Wyatt Russell is saying, "You built me." I just feel so bad for him in that scene, and the guilt with the Lamar's family. That's the scene that broke my heart for him. I absolutely understand why he's going out to be in episode 6, where like, oh, the one who did it got away. I have to stop her, if anything else, and Again, it made me dread that encounter for all the right reasons, but we didn't really have that encounter.
Just sucks that he like lied to the family and it's you could trace the death to his own bad leadership decisions, but he wasn't owning up to that. He was kind of hiding behind, well, I was just doing this because that was what I was ordered to do.
Apropos. As it sounds, I love that he's trying to force the truth as he forges a shield of his own metal, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's making a shield of his accomplishments. They're trying to force the truth. I am Captain America. I'm making my own shield of all the reasons I should be Captain America. That's great. And of course, it's very faulty in battle, as we see.
Yes.
So, let's see also, just with Walker too. I mean, we don't want to linger on too much, but the big fight at the top for the shield was awesome, and it
was a very well done fight for sure.
The whole symbol of the dark "I am Captain America" is about to possibly kill Shield. Like that is the utter symbol of what everything Sam fears this season. What his challenge is of like. You got to go up against that. Like this mantle might drive you crazy, like this guy. And Bucky's getting a taste of the big Winter Soldier showdown. I'm like, oh man, this is what I put Steve through. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
And the boat scene. I think we've talked up the boat scene, but the takeaway. I love that it boils down to as they're tossing the shield to each other. It's this beautiful advice from the VA counselor to the vet. They both need to do the work, and they have like this genuine apology, and the friendship truly starts here in kind of a lethal weapon-y kind of way. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. I have an important question about this episode. That's also an important question for you guys. Who has better chemistry from a romantic perspective? Bucky and Sarah or Bucky and Sam?
I'm inclined to say Bucky and Sarah, I guess.
I mean, like, I'm not one to ship Bucky and Sam, honestly. Like, I would way more ship Steve and Bucky than Bucky and Sam, you know, if we're going that direction.
Fair, yes.
But, I don't know. Like, I thought the Sarah stuff was cute. Like, I think that could be, like, maybe the, you know, the beginnings of something. I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Again, it's like Riggs and Murtaugh's daughter. It's kind of
right.
It's kind of a thing. It's always like it's kind of there. It's always like a joke, but the fact that Murtaugh's always like, wait, why are you looking at my daughter that way?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I don't know if they're really ever going to see anything of that, but I wouldn't mind. Plus, also by the cutest thing, by the way, through the show, the fact that Sam has nephews that makes him Uncle Sam.
Dragon, you read my mind. I was literally just about to bring that up.
It's adorable.
Yeah. The shot where like one of them just like straight up punches Bucky in the face when he comes to the cookout with them, and he's just fine with it.
Of course he is.
But I do love the shot of the nephews.
Worse.
I do love the shot of the nephews playing with the shield when Bucky is, you know, when he's on the couch. I feel like that's another kind of like, you know, like that's an image in itself that could be like a thesis statement for the show.
It's the representation matters symbol. It's the fact that totally. Kids, there are black kids in the world I'm sure love Captain America, but do they until that happens, do they feel represented until we get the Falcon cap, you know?
Yeah. And I got to tell you guys, like my heart is still like that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with as far as like the Chadwick Boseman thing was like, you know, just the loss of an icon for those kids, you know, that to me was like the real gut punch of everything.
Yeah. After overnight, you know, almost becoming this icon and becoming this, you know, force for, you know, great representation in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
It's just way too soon, you know.
And it's still there was so much work to be done too. It's like we just started, you know, like we started and we just built them up to the Speaking of work to be done, we got one episode left.
Okay, episode 6, one ruled, one people.
So I gotta tell you, this was like the soaring. They had some soaring emotional highs and some plot issues, but soaring emotional highs.
Fair.
I like. Let's just get out of the way right now. Sam's costume as Captain America is fucking awesome. It's totally comic book accurate.
Love it so much.
And
he's saving people like on the bridge and in the helicopter. It's great.
My favorite part of this whole thing is how Sam just totally owns the Captain America title. Like as soon as he shows up on the scene, that's all great. Now, of course, we have the Carly and the hostages and all that. Like I honestly don't even want to dwell on it. We've kind of like I feel like we've said our piece on Carly at this point. I don't really think there's a lot in episode 6 that we can kind of illuminate that we haven't already said about it. But needless to say, she doesn't exactly end on the greatest note. And honestly, I think I don't know how you would have done this plot-wise, but I think it would have been more satisfying for if someone had to kill her. I think it would have been more satisfying for it to be Zemo.
Well, here's the thing. Zemo almost killed her. Don't you think it'd be more interesting if Bucky had to make the choice?
That would also be interesting. Sure. I just think like with Sharon Carter, it's like, okay, like the morally gray character did the morally gray thing. It's like,
that's the fact that in that fight, you know, here's the thing on the rewatch, something occurred to me. I think what might have saved some of that power broker and Carly stuff in that big moment is that with Carly, the big epiphany I had is I was pulling for Carly after episode 4, and I kind of realized like, oh no, this isn't working. In the moment where we're trying to strike a parallel to my favorite moment in the MCU with the big Winter Soldier climax that we're trying to kind of parallel.
And it's just like not gonna land.
And I just realized, oh no, I'm not feeling anything in this moment. I'm supposed to feel things in this moment. And it's like all she says is like, fight back. It's like, I'm not feeling anything, Carly. You gotta try more than that. What are you doing to me?
Dragon, you know me. I was cackling like a jackass when she got to the whole fight back, rebel. I'm just like, oh god.
And that's what I'm saying. The problem in that scene is like it's just fight back before there's a real conversation in the scene of like, no, hey, she's the power broker. That's not mentioned at all. Or more importantly, honestly, here's the thing: the emotions and basically there's no discussion of why on earth are you donning that symbol? Like we had that moment earlier on where like you bought into that BS. I'm trying something new. Maybe you should too. We had that, and that's good.
Line, by the way, I love the comeback from Sam, but I hate that initial line.
And here's my problems, and we have that. And that's as close as we scratch the surface to what I'm looking for in this fight here. I want like that should be. Don't make me kill you, Sam. I don't want to kill you. You're dressing the symbol. My mission is I got to make a point here, and you're donning that symbol. Don't make me have to do this. And that should have. I think that would have been a conflict.
Yes,
we didn't have that.
Absolutely.
And of course, just no lack of resolve in the whole pattern. But plus, we revealed in kind of a clunky way too. Like hey, there's Batroc. It's like, wait, you heard the power broker?
Do we lose our image here?
Yeah, we lost the image, but
okay. No. Sorry. Hold on. It happens.
It happens when we don't pay the power bill.
My biggest I get like what they're trying to say, I think, and I kind of spoke to the theory earlier about the way that Carly was portrayed and all that. But my biggest qualm with the finale is that I feel like John Walker's redemption arc is a little bit unearned at this point. Like if I was in Sam or Bucky's shoes and he showed up like that to the fight, like if I was Sam, I would just like pick him up and throw his ass in the river. Just be like, cool off for a minute, John. And then
Gulliver,
that's really smart, Gulliver. I
feel like I'm kind of like I'm halfway on it, honestly. Like I like the fact that we didn't just turn him into like a mustache twirling bad guy. Like, I like the fact that he's, like, not all the way evil. That being said, I totally agree with you that the over-the-top saving people heroics was a bit much, all things considered, given the circumstances.
I did not feel that way. I felt, the redeeming him is kind of a reminder.
I feel like he could have done something a little bit more, like, a little less, like, grandiose, like, big hero moment. Like, I feel like maybe... I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I just feel like it's a little bit too over the top of a hero moment for him.
And it just doesn't make sense that like Sam and Bucky would just be fine with him being there after the conflict in the last episode. Like, I don't know. It just, I'm open to, more stories with John Walker just because the performance was so strong. But like, I really hope that he does something to earn his redemption, because right now it's looking like he's just going to become like, he's just going to become like, the guy who gets everything that he wants, and everybody around him.
I think it'd be interesting if he continued to struggle with PR as U.S. agent.
Yeah, maybe.
Like we'll if he was an effective agent, but he continued to like get into these incidents and Julia Louis-Dreyfus would kind of have to like bail him. I don't know. I think there's potential there, but I hear what you're saying.
Here's where I come down on the U.S. agent thing is that I like redeeming him because it's a reminder of essentially what makes the U.S. agent interesting is that he's not a mustache twirl and that he's well intended. And seeing him make the right choice to save the hostages versus just, get his revenge when he could have, I think it's basically him coming to grips in a lesson that kind of combines with Bucky's arc, and that, you got to stop trying to be the next Captain America or essentially being linked to Steve Rogers in Bucky's case. You got to be on your own terms. Mm-hmm. Which again kind of is why they team up in the end for a bit there, which Bucky never saw coming because he hated this guy. Just wanted to punch him and take the shield to start things. But it's basically the message is like don't force yourself in Steve Rogers' shadow, which is the lesson they both going to come away with, which allows U.S. agent to be his own guy. And in terms of what the future holds for him, I imagine maybe he'll be a well-intended guy who becomes a politically divisive figure, and he's going to have to reconcile that. Maybe that his wife seems really cool with his action. I love the fact that he keeps his wife by the end. I love that we didn't do a thing where there was like a whole, how could you do this, John? But I imagine over time that could cause maybe a rift if he keeps doing these things,
Yeah.
I don't
Could
know.
be.
Maybe. So something not as divisive. I think one of the speech, Sam's speech. Oh boy, it got me, guys. It
Yeah.
really got me in the feels big time. It's like Sam doing Steve proud with a
It's
speech
classic
like he would
Captain
give.
America, man.
Yeah.
It is. It's like that Winter Soldier speech on to the Shield Triskelion base, man. It's like
Totally.
yes.
I've heard it compared to like the Wonder Woman 1984 speech, and like,
A lot
yeah,
better.
this
Way
is how
better.
you do it. This is how you do it.
I love that he's calling out. We built this is like built up since episode 3 with the whole the ads, and that was a good opening, by the way, for episode 3, the whole GRC ad. And I love that he's just basically calling the GRC out on the whole reset and rebuild credo, which going back to it, just kind of for this, I love that Sam's core message here is we can't forget and ignore our trauma and progress. We can't do that. We can't just we can't basically make the world like Isaiah Bradley. We can't just we have to learn from these mistakes from like the Isaiah Bradleys and the Flag Smashers. A group of people band together. They go up against really strong governments, and we at no point did we stop and ask why. I'm not saying we have to like labeling them terrorists. That's one thing, but it's the fact that like we should at least consider like why are they doing this, and we didn't. We labeled them because it was easier, and we want to get back to status quo. That can't just if we do that, we're just going to get, as he says, a 2.0. We're going to get like the next Carly or the next the next group, and it's going to be it's going to be even worse next time. We got to stop this. We got to address it. We got to make changes and hold out. You got to do better, Senator. You and your bearded face taking shields and giving them other people. Yeah.
All right, guys. We really should wrap this up pretty
well,
soon.
we're at the end. We got to talk about the museum bit. Then we'll wrap this puppy up.
Oh, the museum bit. I mean, I can just like go on and on. It just completely, just absolutely sticks to landing, and I feel like the museum bit on its own kind of like just makes the show for me. Like I feel like I'm more critical of this show than you two are, and that's fine. All film is subjective and whatnot, yada yada yada. But
sure,
even in my
I acknowledge that there's flaws in this show. I still like it.
Right. But even in my nitpicks though, like this museum scene absolutely just lands. I think it's easily one of the most powerful moments in the whole MCU. It's one of the most genuinely human moments in the history of the MCU.
I was probably crying like a baby during this, so happy with it.
I don't blame you.
It's like
and of course you've always been a sucker for the Cat Museum.
I know.
It's like doing, the reaction to this is like doing a like perfect salute, like trembling very hard as you're doing it with like tears streaming down your face, but you're too cool to be crying. So you're just
this is where
flexing every muscle in your body.
You're crying.
Yeah.
Like shut up. It's just when that exchange, and plus the generational thing. If we have Elijah Bradley also in the scene who was going to go on to be Patriot, I really hope they keep that actor if they're going to do that.
They
really stick with their choice.
Wonderful choice.
Just the generational thing is just perfect. Just this whole like now they'll never forget what you did for this country, never, and just Lumbley's embrace and the shaking embrace of just it like. Investing in the hope of the impossible dream Sam made possible. He never thought in his wildest dreams this would ever happen, and just Sam honoring legacy and patriotism, and it's utterly wonderful. And the other thing that kind of gets me too is just we had the scene when they're walking off after like Bucky calls him Cap for the first time, and he's like patting him on the back with the shield. It's like this perfect symbol of Cap and Bucky's friendship kind of goes on as in the credits we say Captain America and the Winter Soldier. It's just this. It's just like by a different name, the same story goes on, and just seeing these guys actually become friends. Like they're taking pictures with Sam on his left, on everyone's left. It's a beautiful ending. About we invest in the community, which is what fixed the boat in the community. Is just we're celebrating all the right things in the end here. It's a perfect ending, utterly.
I really.
All right, guys. Yeah, totally. I also really like the Captain America and the Winter Soldier thing at the end. That was a great touch. Okay, final thoughts. I think I've said pretty much everything I need to say about this show. Everything I could say. I just basically be repeating. Pretty much fires on all cylinders except for some of the Flag Smashers stuff.
That I want to get back to briefly, just to comment on how much I enjoyed it, was the finale of the deprogramming with Io in Wakanda, where he's staring at the fire and she's reading off his command phrase. Like he says almost nothing in the whole scene, but his reactions and his Sebastian Stan's performance in that scene is truly great.
It is
really, really powerful performance in that scene.
I guess so. Final thoughts for me then,
please.
Wherever Steve Rogers is, whether it be the moon or somewhere beyond, I think he'd be proud of Sam and Bucky's. I'm proud of this show. It stumbles in the finale, maybe a bit, sure, and ultimately I think maybe 6 hours wasn't enough for this story, or Disney Plus's week to week isn't helping, however you slice that. But you know what? First Avengers third act, it ain't perfect. It ain't perfect either, but I love that too. It's the first outing. Maybe the next Captain America movie or series. I'm not sure if they're going to do both or just the movie. However, it's going to end up being, which is in development. I'm hoping that's going to be maybe the Winter Soldier equivalent. Maybe that'll iron out kind of the trial run here. Maybe it'll be even better. I mean, who knows? I mean, I can't wait to find out and strap in for Sam and Bucky's next adventure in the MCU. I mean, I'll be sure to bring the old Star Spangled Hanky. I'm going to have a great time with, as I had with this show. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, Gulliver, final thoughts.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this show. I think, at the beginning was there were some question marks and like, are they going to pay this off? Is this something that's going to work? Is this going to be is this going to live up to the story that they're starting to tell here? And I'm really glad that it's paid off in the way that it has. Absolutely has flaws. It's just, but the things that they did really well, I think will stick. And I think they've done something that no other MCU project has done thus far. They've really told a story with a strong message here. And I'm glad. I'm really glad.
All right, well, that will do us. Let me try that one more time. That'll do it for us this week as we holster our remotes till the next installment calls for the drop. Mano y mano. Just plus and us.
Turkish Delight.
Star Spangled Man with a plan.
Turkish Delight is gross.
Hashtag Zemo's Alfred.